Hey, Bobby. Thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely.
Hey, I've been. It's funny because when I met you, it was in a random chat, well, a random group on Reddit, which
Yeah.
was the wedding videography group, and I'm like, who is this guy? He's so knowledgeable, but the web is a really dark place, and everyone has their own opinions,
For sure.
and you have a lot of information that you're just giving away for free, and it doesn't even feel like you're trying to be like a smartass, which I love. So because yeah, whenever I post something there, they're like so just vicious.
Yeah.
Their reaction is just so heartbreaking. I'm like, guys, come on. I'm
The
just trying to
internet
help
can be
people out.
vicious.
Yeah. So, thanks for being as humble and as knowledgeable.
For sure.
So before we start, I would love it if you tell the viewers and the listeners something about yourself that they probably don't know.
Let's see. If you don't know me or we're not Facebook friends, an interesting fact about me is I trained for the show American Ninja Warrior, and I was a competitor last year. Um, I've got a competition coming up. I'm hoping to make it to World Finals this year. So yeah, it's a
Oh, that's
fun little
cool.
side thing for me.
You just added me on Facebook, so I didn't see that, but that's amazing.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
you'll see videos here and there, but
have you seen those videos where this Asian guy's just running through the track without any problems?
oh yeah, that was in so Ninja Warrior came from a show called Sasuke, which is in Japan. And I think that's where that was. It was this guy just like did not stop. I think he ran a course that, takes a lot of people longer and ran it in like under a minute or
That
something
was nuts. I'm like, what
crazy.
the hell? Holy crap. And he had like a normal build. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure he's like pretty well cut underneath his clothes, but
I'm
from
sure.
the
Yeah.
outside, he was okay.
You want to be, a smaller, lighter guy, I think for that.
Faster,
I
yeah.
think that I excel partially because of that, because
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah, yeah.
smaller guy.
I
So
think also with like dancing, it's kind of like the same.
yeah.
Like a break
Similar.
dancer, it's
And
easier.
other stuff, rock climbing, similar. You don't want to carry a lot of weight.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, 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 that makes sense. Except for Jason Momoa. Like every time I added him on Instagram, I'm like, this guy's like 6'4" or something, and
Yeah.
just climbing these things without any problem.
Yeah, there's advantages there too. You got a longer reach and, stuff like that. So
Hopefully
it all evens out.
one day I'm gonna climb my rock.
Yeah, do it.
So okay, let's get into what your origin story is, how you got into the industry, and what you're up to right now.
Totally. So the way I got into the industry was 2006 or so, probably. We had a thing in school. I was in high school at the time where you could take a month off of school. You could do a project. You could shadow somebody in a field you were interested in, just kind of a variety of things. And I chose to basically intern for a guy who really turned into a mentor. And then I worked for him for a little while as well, and just kind of learned under him. He took a very open approach with me. Nothing was off limits. He wanted to basically teach me everything that he knew. Um, and we've kind of taken that a little bit too, just as we've had tons of interns over the years, even just with the YouTube tutorials that I'm doing and podcasts like this and everything. Like, we really like to kind of, I feel like I wouldn't be where I am without the level of openness that he had with me. And so we kind of try to flip that around and do the same thing for people that are learning from us. Um, and so, yeah, I did that. I went to school, college in California. So I was out there for a while. I started, shooting my own stuff out there. And I also shot for some other companies as well during that time. And by the time I graduated, I was working full time, shooting weddings, kind of alongside school. And so it just kind of, it's funny. I went to school for cinematography. Um, but that's more, set stuff and short films and whatever. And um, I, I love doing weddings at the time, but I never really saw it as like, this is what I want my career to be. Um, I was very much of the mindset that I wanted to go to school for something that I loved. And if I just had to work a sales job or whatever on the side to do what I love, that was fine. But luckily it's been good. And my wife joined me when we were engaged around that same time, towards the end of school for me. And yeah, we've just been going strong ever since, with
So
a move cross country as well in there. So
yeah, I was just gonna ask. Where are you based out of?
yeah, so we're based in Minneapolis, but we shoot all over. We still shoot in California a lot, and then shoot around the U.S. and occasionally internationally as well.
So when you started out your company, what were the I don't it, I don't know if you still remember, but what were the biggest challenges that you faced?
Yeah, I think there were a few things. One of the things was just the like logistics of starting a business. So kind of unrelated to wedding video. I mean, it could have been wedding photo. It could have been, you name it. Just trying to figure out, especially not wanting to spend money, trying to figure out a contract, trying to figure out what type of business license do I need, trying to figure out, do I need to charge sales tax? And if so, what for and what rate and all this stuff. And that part of it was very much a self-learning, situation, and just kind
Yeah.
of stumbling through it. And as I look back, there were probably mistakes I made, but it's all good now. And I think another thing too is just knowing when to take that leap, to kind of just say like, this is what I'm doing. And I lucked out in the fact that I had pretty steady work shooting weddings at the time that I graduated college, which is a natural transition on its own. But especially looking back and thinking like, well, what if I had already been out of school and in a career path for a year or 2 years or whatever? I think I could see that as being a really difficult step to take.
So what do you think you would have done differently if there was any? Because usually, the
Yeah.
journey is the journey is the gift, right? So what would you have done differently if given a chance?
That's a good question. I think I, like a lot of people, and this is something that I kind of, I think we'll probably get into later, and I kind of try to bring up to people, especially when they're newer, is like I was so focused on gear. And I think that especially going to like film school, and you're kind of just like molded to care so much about the gear in some ways. And so, you're constantly thinking like, well, I don't know if I can actually do this wedding justice because I don't have XYZ. Or like you're basically in like building mode for years at that when you have that mindset. And it really detracts from your storytelling. It really detracts from how you're running your business, and things that are a lot more important than gear when it comes down to it. I think there's a threshold, like, yeah, you need to have a camera, you need to have a backup camera, and it needs to be of a certain quality, but like you can make amazing films with very little,
Oh yeah,
or not top of the line. And so
we survived with a T2i and a skateboard.
yeah. I mean,
I couldn't afford a slider, and every time I pull it out in a shoot, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cute!" But then
yeah,
looking back, I'm like, "Oh my god, I wish I
yeah,
grabbed
there's
like the
definitely
slider."
stuff like that where you're like, like, did it work? Yes.
Yes.
Like, but beyond that, like I my first slider, I got it off of a guy that I bought it on Craigslist. And I met this guy, and he was a wedding videographer, and I started chatting with him, and then I ended up shooting for him for a little while. And it was like a 48-inch slider or something. And like, I was bringing that to every wedding. I was like, yeah, this is so cool. And like, this was before, like, this was when it was just like the carriage straight on the bar. Like there was no resistance. There was no, like, it wasn't that smooth. Plus like, at 48 inches long, like, and I was just mounting it in the middle on a tripod. So like, if you go to the extremes, it would just like bend.
Yeah,
But
it's so disappointing. Yeah, I remember getting one of those, and it's the one where you can put two tripods from end to end.
mine could, I just chose not to.
It was a nightmare. I
Yeah.
just gave it away.
Or like before, actually they were probably out, but like travel jibs, if they were out, they weren't a big thing. we had a legit, I mean, it was huge. It wasn't huge. It was 8 feet or 10 foot, but we had like a 10-foot jib, and the thing weighed like 1,000,000 pounds. And we brought it to every wedding for, 4 years, 5 years or something.
So
And then you look back at that and you're just like,
why?
yeah.
I've never tried a jib before.
Yeah.
It's you need to balance it, right? Or you need to put weights on the other side.
I mean, you balance it, but it's not like bouncing a gimbal or anything. Like it's
Okay.
it's very lenient or whatever, forgiving, I guess, on the balance.
Okay.
So yeah, I just threw. I think at the time we were shooting on 5D Mark IIs, or maybe Mark III was out at that point still. I don't really know, but we threw 10 pounds on the back of it, and it kind of depends, yeah, like how long it's extended and stuff. The new travel jibs, like the one by I can't think of it, but there's a big one, I can't remember the name, and that one like works really well because you can add weight, but you can also like move the weights back and forward, and we have that now too, but we don't really use it anymore.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have equipment there that you haven't used in like 4 years.
Oh yeah, we've actually my wife and I were talking, we were like, tonight after dinner, what we need to do is take all of our gear and like take pictures and try to sell it. But we've also been saying that we need to do that for like a year, so we'll see.
Or donate it in a museum.
Yeah, some of that stuff, seriously. I have a tripod that's like, I'll never sell it. I'll also probably never use it. Like I've tried to sell it multiple times. Yeah, I don't know. But it's a tripod. It's a good tripod. But like, why do I want to bring that one around? It weighs like 50 pounds,
Yeah.
And it doesn't go any higher than the ones I have that are, carbon fiber and weigh like 4 pounds. So.
Oh my gosh. It's funny going through all these things because we're gearheads. Like videographers are naturally gearheads, but at the same time we couldn't afford it, so we always get all these knockoffs.
Yeah.
Or not even knockoffs. Like before I went to Target to buy a tripod, like a Sunpack tripod.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I tried so hard to make it feel like it's an expensive tripod whenever I do shots. And like when I was talking about the skateboard before, I wasn't just bringing a skateboard. I was bringing a whole board. And then I'm gonna put the skateboard on top of it.
Yeah, roll it across or whatever.
I'll probably post that video of the slider shot in this video podcast.
Awesome.
It's so funny. So if I were to go back and change something, I would have probably played around with my equipment first before I used it for a wedding.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Like the slider.
Yeah.
I just brought it and I'm like, hope for the best. Here we go.
Yeah. But some of that too is like you don't like in the moment it doesn't phase you, right? When you're showing up with a skateboard, you're like, oh, that's a sick shot. Like that was awesome. Or like, you're showing like I was showing up with the giant slider, a 48-inch, and I'm like, well, I can't use it at the very end because it bent, 45 degrees, but that was pretty sweet. You know what I mean? Like, and then I use it for 20 more weddings or something,
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
I don't know. That's just part of it. And you learn. And I think being more of a veteran in the industry, like you can look at people who are starting out and like, I've seen posts of people like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about making my own like gimbal. And it's got like, blocks of wood counterbalancing it or whatever. And you're like probably I wouldn't show up to a wedding with that, but you do you'll learn. So it's whatever.
I mean, it's probably gonna look like a little Tykes toy, but
yeah,
if it works.
Yeah, I mean, if it produces, I mean, ultimately, if you're getting awesome footage, like, and you have a weird way to do it, and your clients are okay with it, whatever, right? I mean, maybe you don't get as many referrals because the guests there think you're crazy or something, but outside of that, whatever.
I think also if I were to go back and do something differently, I would have probably gotten a mentor first before I bought equipment, because that would have been so valuable for me.
That's one thing that I like. I don't know if you see me on different Facebook groups or Reddit forums or whatever, but one of the things that there's a few things that I feel like I just really try to hammer down, or maybe they just come up so frequently that I find myself saying the same thing frequently. But one of the things that I really stand behind is the value of second shooting. And especially if you can have, somebody that you're second shooting for consistently, That's obviously going to be better than bouncing around between a ton of companies, but it's kind of like a built-in mentorship in that way, because they obviously, their end goal is probably usually not for you to learn everything you need to do and then ditch them and do your own thing and be a competitor in the market. But while you're shooting for them, their goal is to get you up to par, and you get this, amazing mentorship, assuming that they are good at what they do and running a good business and whatever. You get to play around with tons of gear. You get wedding day, like a wedding day is so unique. I don't care if you're the best cinematographer in the world. Like a wedding day is just, it's unique.
always different.
If you haven't done it, you're going to be caught off guard. So you're getting like all this experience, and you're basically like, you're not risking anything and you're getting paid. Like I'm a huge proponent. I mean, I know people who second shot and have done well. I know people who second shot and haven't done well. I know people who haven't second shot and just jump right in and are doing great. And, people who,
Really?
I mean, it's all over the place. I mean, people are going to get to the same point in very many different ways. But I think as far as like your best odds, I think second shooting is just super valuable.
Yeah, that's why now I remember why I actually approached you, because I've always seen you have like really good information when you post something, but then you said I'm huge on second shooting, and I feel like everyone should start there first.
Yeah.
And I was actually interviewing one of my mentors he taught me how to shoot on a monopod by itself, like no gimbal or anything. And we were doing a podcast last night, and we were talking about second shooting and how important it is, not only because you get to experiment, but also you get to be exposed to different cultures. You get to watch people, how they handle their side of the business without you like risking everything,
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it goes so much further. If it's the right guy or girl, it's the right mentor, or shooter that you're working under, like it goes so much further than, I mean, just the wedding day experience is so valuable, but it goes so much further than that with, like our interns, like I said, we're an open book. So if they want to ask about pricing, like, I mean, we've helped interns once they kind of start doing their own thing. I mean, we've helped them put together their pricing guides or their collections. I mean, we've sat down with a budget and we've put together like, hey, here's the gear that I would buy. Right? I mean, like, I guess, I don't know. I don't want to like toot our horn, but like, I think any mentor in that position is so valuable to whoever the mentee is.
I mean, it's usually just all about who wants to hear what you have to say, right? It doesn't matter if other people don't really care, as long as this person who's asking you is, that person that approaches you, they already see you as an authoritative figure.
Absolutely.
And they value your information.
Yeah. And on the flip side, like being somebody who's been in industry for a long time, and I think for anybody who has the time to take it on, because having interns is like in your head, you're like, oh, it'll be great because they'll help me out with, organizing my edits or whatever. Right. But in reality, like, I think our interns get more out of it than we get out of it. And that's okay. Like, we like teaching, and we love having our interns, and we love having people that we can call on, on occasion if we need extra shooters or something. But like, just having somebody come in with a fresh perspective, even if they aren't well versed in weddings or running a business or whatever, like they can show you things that are like very valuable to your business too. We just, especially like, I don't even feel like we're old, but like social media has changed. It continues to change, and everybody's always scrambling and figuring out new ways. And like, there are things that we've done with like Instagram or whatever that like I wouldn't have thought to do it until we talked with somebody who was like newer, and they're like, oh, this is what I'm doing. And I'm like, that is genius. Yeah. So
yeah, it's really important for you to, I guess, talk to me about how you hire people. Like, because I'm pretty sure you have a process, because, it's really important for people to understand that whoever you hire, sometimes they're going to learn from you, but most of the time you're going to learn from them as well. And so how important is that hiring process, and do you have one?
So are you talking about us hiring second shooters or us getting interns, or?
Whoever.
I can really only speak to interns.
Okay, gotcha.
We're a husband and wife team. We very rarely, like, the only time we have second shooters is not really So we do photo and video. So if we do both at a wedding, we will bring a third person. It's like a very, very short list of very close friends of ours. So
Okay.
I don't, I've just known them forever. I know they're solid people. I know they're going to represent our brand well, and they're going to do good work. And I don't have a whole lot beyond that. But for interns, I think the number one thing, I think, in my head, I'm always like, oh, I want somebody who already knows how to control light, like can already shoot in manual, and just like wants to know about running a wedding, or shooting a wedding specifically, or running a business. And I think that happens sometimes, and that's great. But I also think the biggest thing that we've found is that the most important thing is that they care about learning. Like we've had people who have known nothing, but they want to learn, and they're going to try, and they're going to put effort into it. And they have turned out to be like some of the best interns that we've had, like people that we will refer work to. People that are off doing their own thing are doing, phenomenal work. And we've had the flip side of people who like did know some stuff and had an interest in photo or whatever, and just, didn't really have the work ethic or the desire to learn. So I think, not like almost, obviously you want to pay attention to where they're at for an intern specifically, but not putting so much weight in that. I think you can get rewarded with some people who are really going to put the effort in. Obviously for a second shooter, somebody that you're trusting to actually deliver some work right away, that's going to be different. But yeah.
Okay, so you said you're a husband and wife team that does photo and video. So how many what's your average yearly, annually when you do weddings?
How many weddings?
How many weddings do you do on an average?
Yeah. So for a long time, we did a hard cap at 25 weddings. We wouldn't do more than that. We just felt very strongly that was like, I'm sure we could have done more, but that like kept our sanity, and that was important to us. As I'm sure lots of people know, like we've been in this industry a long time. We've seen people come and go. It's definitely a revolving door, because one of the big things that I mentioned in my 5 mistakes video was taking on too much work too soon. And that can kind of go hand in hand with pricing. But we really wanted to make sure that every wedding we are pumped to be there. Every season we are pumped for it to start. And so limiting our weddings played a big role in that. Since then, we've been dwindling that down a little bit and kind of raising our rates and doing more and more where we're doing both photo and video. And so, now we're probably, Micah is my wife, and we would probably differ a little bit. So I would like to shoot 15. She would like to shoot 20. I think this year we're going to be at about 18. So
you're meeting
somewhere in that range. Yeah, exactly. And that is marriage.
That is marriage. Oh, okay. Do you have, is this both your full-time job?
Yeah.
And then do you have other sources of income when it comes to?
No, I mean, we do more than just weddings. We do commercial work. Micah does a lot of like senior photos and stuff. Family photos. I don't play a big role in that. But wedding video is and always has been the majority of our income. This year, since we're doing photo and video at most of our weddings, I guess you could say wedding photo and video is the majority of our income. But yeah.
So you started photo and video at the same time, or
no? This is another one. Mike and I felt very differently on this. This was like a real big point of contention in our business. So we were based in Santa Barbara, California for a long time.
Oh, I love Santa Barbara.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and we get to go back there and shoot all the time, which is great, especially in the winter. So, but yeah, so we were based there for a long time. We did mostly video while we were out there. Micah did some photo stuff. We did some photo stuff, I guess you would say, but it wasn't very many weddings. We had a couple. Actually, the first wedding that we shot, it was a couple that contacted us about. First photo wedding that we shot. Couple that contacted us about photo, and I don't think I've given somebody a hard sell. Like we're very not salesy. I just don't. That's not us, and I don't like to run my business like that. I gave them such a hard sell to not hire us for photo and hire us for video. And like, we could not convince them. They're like, you were the videographer at our friend's wedding. And like, we saw you posted a couple Instagram photos from it, and like, we just love them so much. Can you just shoot photo for a wedding? You know, we did it and it turned out great and it was awesome. And then kind of from that point on, we toyed around with the idea of offering photo a little bit more. And it really wasn't until we moved back to Minneapolis. You know, we did a few here and there throughout, and we did a lot more other photo work. But we just really wanted to be known as wedding video only. And that's what I was really pushing for. And Micah really wanted us to start offering both. And then when we moved, or a little bit before we moved, we started pushing both a little bit more, and it's basically transitioned to us doing both photo and video at a majority of our weddings this year.
Okay, so when you decided to include photo, did you have any like struggle when it came to like you individually? Because you were talking about like people were there's already a demand for it.
Yeah. So one of the things I think, again, what helped was that we were already in this natural transition. One of my reasons that I didn't want to offer photo when we were in Santa Barbara, which we were, you know, very well established as really a go-to wedding videographer, and there wasn't a whole lot of competition there, is that, you know, we didn't want to step on the toes of these photographers that we became really good friends with. You know, we loved the relationship that we had of passing them work and them passing us work when they had it and whatnot. And so that was kind of one of my big reasons. And, you know, we really did look at it. We kind of looked back and we realized that there wasn't a whole lot of weddings actually booking from some of these photographers, not to their fault at all, but just that, you know, maybe due to their price point and therefore what the client had budgeted for video and just didn't have enough for us or whatever. So we kind of looked back, and that was kind of the last, like, that was my main argument, and it was kind of disproven, I guess you would say, where we were like, well, you know, we're not really stepping on their toes that much. And everybody like there was super gracious about it. And it was totally fine, basically.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you about, since we already dove a little bit into the 5 mistakes that you make. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I saw your video and I feel like people need to watch that, but at the same time, if you could expound on it a little bit more, just to give like a quick background. So we could start with taking on too much work.
Yeah. So one thing I kind of mentioned earlier is that I think this can kind of go hand in hand with pricing. Which is one of the mistakes. I think that was number 1. I don't know. They might be, I probably have them out of order, but I just think kind of going back to that burnout thing, like you hear burnout, you hear that word tossed around a lot. And especially in this industry where you are doing almost like you are wearing every hat, especially when you're starting out and you have so many things to worry about. And, you know, is my pricing right? Is my website up to date? Like, oh, I just finished a wedding. I have to post it and blog it and send it out and then help my clients figure out how to post it. And then, oh no, they posted it with the wrong, like, you know, freeze frame. And then like, there's just you're getting pulled so many different ways, that even if it was your first year and you did like 10 weddings, I feel like I'm trying to bring it down to 15. Mike is trying to bring it down to 20. We're somewhere in that range. And like, we are trying to hand off certain aspects of our business. Like we got a client resource management tool to try and help us streamline stuff like that and emails and stuff like that. And like, I still feel like we're getting torn, you know, so many different directions, you know? So I think it's very easy to, especially when you're starting out, especially when you don't have a routine down necessarily, to take on every type of work, every wedding that comes your way, and really just it snowballs, right? Because if you take on every wedding, yeah, they're all great and you're getting paid and maybe hopefully you're making good money, but like you're all of a sudden you're 15 edits behind, and like then you just stress about that and then you put it off. At least for me, I would stress and then put it off. And, you know, so you just kind of continually build up that backlog. And I think it's easy to burn out by doing that.
Yeah. We before, maybe like 3 years ago, we did 100 weddings a year. And
that is nuts.
It's insane. See, I have so much white hair.
Yeah.
And after that, we cut it down to 80. and
Yeah.
now last year we did 63.
Yeah.
And now I'm at this point where I kind of want to narrow it down a little bit more
Yeah.
and
Well, and I
concentrate.
think there's, there's a couple things to be said for that. Is one, obviously I'm talking from the perspective of a boutique brand husband and wife team. So if you have more teams, obviously that number changes and you have editors and whatever. Um, but there is still a point with everybody where it's like, this is too much for me to
Oh
handle. This is
yeah.
too much for me to wrap my brain around. And then I think the other thing too is like we want to give all of our couples the attention they deserve. Like we want to show up to every wedding and be pumped for it. Just stuff like that where, and at the same time, like in a purely business standpoint, and I've had this discussion with people, and I think a lot of people feel similar to me, but there are people that feel the other way where it's like, why would you, if you can increase your craft, increase your price, wouldn't you rather make, I don't know, 100 grand or whatever with 15 weddings than with 40 weddings?
Yeah.
Whatever that number is. And I also think there's, from a business standpoint, there's different ways to approach it. Like some people want to work nonstop and they want to just make the highest figure that they can. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think that I had a really good discussion with somebody once, and I have no idea who it was. It might've been on Reddit. It might've been on Facebook, where I was kind of coming from the other point where I was saying like, hey, this is how much I need to live comfortably. And I'm going to make that, and I'm going to make it on hopefully a smaller number of weddings. And like, I would rather, like, could I book 10 more weddings? Sure, I could. Like, I have the time probably to do it, but I would rather enjoy my life. And I think that's a transition that my wife and I have made over the last decade or so, where before, like, we were like, I mean, if we would have had 50 weddings come our way that we could have shot all of them, we probably would have done it. And we would have regretted it also, but
Yeah, I think you're right. It's all about the decision you make.
yeah. And there's a balance.
Yeah, yeah. Because for us, when we started, we came here 2008. We started the company in 2010. We're like, man, we came here from the Philippines to the U.S. and we're like, okay, we're just gonna work nonstop.
Yeah.
We did what we did because we had great guys that were able to help us out and work.
Absolutely.
But man, we still got burnt out. I mean, my wife is amazing. She was just 100% in customer service. All of our clients are happy. But there was just a time where we're like, when we think about work, we're going, we're just trying to gag because it's just too much. And even when we cut it back a little bit less, it's it's still gonna get to you. But you're right.
Absolutely.
It just has to be your mindset.
And I think it's easy for people to not see, especially when it's your first year or your second year, you're still growing and figuring things out. You're like, oh, I can shoot 30 weddings. That's 30 different days only that I'm shooting. And I can, even if you can edit in, 2 days per wedding or whatever, like there's just so much more to running a business that, especially early on, you're probably not going to outsource. And like, even if you're on top of one thing, it's like whack-a-mole, right? Like, oh, I'm on top of my shooting and my edits, but then it's like, oh shoot, I haven't emailed this client in 6 months and their wedding is next week. Like there's just so many different aspects where you kind of just get pounded from.
Yeah. And I feel like people need to know that delegation is really important.
Oh
like,
yeah.
You can't do it yourself. You have to either hire someone to do it for you, or you just split work around. Between you and your wife, right?
Yeah, that's been a big thing that we've I wouldn't say struggled with, but really kind of dove into and tried to figure out. Because it's huge, and it really, your stress level goes so far down when you can delegate the right things to the right people. And even between us, like we have very specific roles. We always get asked, I don't know if you do, but like people all the time, they're like, wait, you guys are married? And we're like, yeah. And they're like, how do you do it? They're like, I don't know. And I think one of the big things, like if somebody actually wants to know, is that we are really good at having our, like Micah has her things that she's in charge of. I have my things that I'm in charge of. We are always open to hearing each other's opinion, but ultimately, like if it's my thing, like it's my decision and I want to hear her out. And I think, we've change our minds on things because of what the other person has said. But like ultimately you kind of need to have your own tasks that you're in charge of. Because if you're both 50-50 on every decision, like we would just never make a decision or we'd fight about it. So,
You're gonna argue about it. Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And that goes back to enjoying your life. Like it's just not worth it. You don't want to argue about everything, right? So
I think for us too, like this is our full-time job. We don't have kids, so we're together 24/7.
yeah.
The first few years when we were starting out, all I talked about was work because I was so driven. And she's like, "Can you please not talk about work? It's 11 at night. And we're like, go to bed."
We actually, Micah imposed a rule, I think when we were living in Santa Barbara, like once, like basically in our bedroom at all, like we could not discuss work. Like it just wasn't allowed. Like,
yeah.
I don't like it because it's hard for me, but it's probably good for me too. So
it's hard to turn off, especially when you're on a roll.
Yep. Right? Entrepreneur life. That's the way it works. Oh, man. You're never off the clock. You never,
And people think that, we have friends who have like normal jobs.
Yep.
They always say, "Oh my gosh, you guys are like always eating out.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Doing happy hour."
Yeah.
And I'm like, because we need to.
Yeah.
We need to reward ourselves. So now, since you talked about taking on too much work hand in hand with pricing, I wanted to ask you because when we started out, of course, just like everyone else, we charged super low.
Mm-hmm.
And what I feel like where we went wrong was we stuck with that price for the longest time. And I was like, if we increase our prices, we're going to lose all our clients.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a bunch of people and they were saying, when your top package gets booked, that means you need to raise your prices because
there are people out there.
The value. Yeah. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I think pricing is one of it's like I said, it's number one on my 5 mistakes that newer wedding videographers are making, simply because they're typically, I think a lot of people are just charging a magic number they pulled out of a hat, which doesn't work. And in general, it's typically lower price that you're starting. And I'm all for, like, if you need to get you need to get something in your portfolio, like obviously having work in your portfolio is important. But I think one of the dangers is that when you start out low, or at any point, if you're low and you continue to be low, I think the longer you're at that low price point, the harder you're basically just digging your hole deeper. You're expanding your web of, referrals, but all those referrals are at that price point. And so it's really, like you said, it's really scary. Even when we didn't, I guess we kind of raised prices. What we really did was restructure our collections and raise prices at the same time. And that was after 10 years, I think, maybe in the industry. And we felt the same way. We're like, oh my gosh, we're going to lose all of our clients. But the reality is that's for the most part not true. I mean, if your work is somewhat in line with the price point, but the same thing, even beyond that, and I hate to say it because it drives me nuts, but there are people out there making phenomenal work who simply can't run a business. And there are people out there making subpar work who know how to run a business and know how to market and are, demanding top dollar or close to it, So it's not always about that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was asking my wife, how would I ask you this? Because I feel like when it comes to raising your price, there should be a value, just like what you said, the value, the quality of work or whatever, just needs to be along with that price raising. And I feel like the value should, at least for us, the value the clients get is like really great customer service.
Yeah.
Because our style, and I know our style is intentional and it's very simple and just classic, because I just want to capture the moments and I don't want to set up anything. But I probably 70% of the value of the people are paying is customer service. Our edits are on time, and
absolutely. That's huge. I think we have the best work in the world? Absolutely not. I can name, right off the bat, multiple people who I think do better work than us. And they probably, and some of them charge more than us, and that's fine too. But yeah, there's more to it than just your work. There's running a business. And I know, and a lot of people that I think do great work miss deadlines and stuff, and we
Oh,
don't. Or, we're always in communication with people. And I know people that I've run into just over the years that like straight up ghost clients, and like they're done when they're done. And I like, even if you're making the best work in the world, certain people aren't going to put up with that.
it's
So,
not. Like, yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, I think one of the biggest things um, with price and what we really came down to when we just restructured, granted, we kept our base price the same, but we basically stripped it of a lot of stuff to kind of, move people to a higher price point. And one of the big things that really pushed that was that we had bookings and, we had 3 collections at the time. And our top one was, we felt well paid for it. We weren't complaining about that, but at the same time, we started getting multiple bookings. And the way that we looked at it was, why are we limiting, like if our top collection at the time was 7,500 or whatever, if somebody comes in and their budget is 15 grand for video and our top collection is 7,500, they're going to book that. Why are we are leaving 7,500 on the table? We wouldn't have to sell. We wouldn't have to hard sell. Like if that's what they came in with the budget, we were the limiting factor, and we never want to be like, we do not want to be the limiting factor to what our couples spend or want with us. And so that was kind of a big mental shift in how we approached it and how we thought about it. And that led to kind of our new collections and stuff like that.
Just like what Ray Roman said, never limit your clients' spending power.
Yeah. Because you don't know. Like I could say, like our entire wedding budget when we got married is smaller than our average booking for
Us too.
our wedding. You know what I mean? And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Our wedding was perfect. It's exactly what we wanted. We wouldn't do anything different. But like, other people, like everybody has different values on everything. And especially if you're showing them value in your customer service, in your product, in your whatever, like if they, like I said, if they come in and their budget is, 6 figures or their budget is 5 figures or whatever, like you should allow them to spend that. Or at least, obviously there's a certain point where you're like, oh gosh, I can't add anything else in. Like I'm already shooting for 5 days. I don't know, whatever. Right. But like, for the most part, you shouldn't be the limiting factor in what your clients spend, because people will assign different values, and when they want you, and
that's amazing.
With a budget, they be able to spend that budget. And it's not like like I said, it's not a salesy thing at all, because you're not even gonna have to push it. They're gonna be like, oh, well, my budget is 10 grand or 15 grand or whatever. Like I see your collections. This one is within my budget and it's the highest and it looks awesome and I want all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. So you're saying when it comes to pricing, do you feel like there's a standard when it comes to price? Because I was talking to Valerie Gernhauser a few months ago about, she's a wedding planner and she's a high-end wedding planner. And she said, I went into the wedding industry and my first rate was $7,000.
Yeah.
And she said, I did it because there's no standard for price.
Yeah.
If people think that it's $2,000, no one said it's $2,000. I want to charge $7,000. So do you feel like there's no standard for pricing? People could just price whatever they want?
I think it's interesting because I think there's 2 different ways to look at it. I think when you look at it from the industry standpoint, I feel like there is what I think people would consider a standard of like good quality, not going to make mistakes, going to be a pretty pleasant experience for the couple, probably at, I don't know, 3,000 to 3,500, something like that. Right. I think that's where a lot of people are like, if you're doing good work, you've done it for a little while, you know what you're doing, you have the gear, you're smart, whatever, like you should be charging that much at least, assuming your quality is, your product is decent. But then I think I actually kind of agree with what you're saying. If you look at it from a client perspective, like most people are not, I don't know, like some people are going around and they're getting quotes from 20 different people and whatever, right? And they're just going to go with the cheapest option. And that's not your ideal client then.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, there are people who are just building their budget. I mean, there are people who have built their budget around us. There are people
Yes.
we've had couples that say, hey, I love your work. I want to hire you. They found us through a friend or through, whatever, right? And they say, what are your collections or whatever? And we send it to them or we chat with them. And then they get back and they say, oh my gosh, like, I'm sorry, I didn't expect it to be that. Is that normal? And we're like, yeah, I mean, that's what we charge. I don't it's not.
Yeah.
And it's not like insane. It's not like, yes, our wedding videos are $150,000. Like, and people are just like, oh, okay, well, that's what we'll do then. Like, there's a certain amount of education that's just not there for a client, because how many wedding videographers are you hiring in your lifetime?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a great point. That's a great point.
And you're hiring photographers occasionally, but not often for a wedding. And, you have certain things to go off of and whatever, but I don't know. I just think that there is kind of no, I forgot the word that you used.
No standard.
Yeah. No standard or there doesn't have to be a standard from a client perspective.
Okay. Yeah. If they want to, just like what we talked about earlier, don't limit their spending power. Yeah. So if they want to pay you 10 grand,
yeah. And I mean, there are people who come in and they say, hey, here's my wedding. I have all this and I have 3,000 budgeted, and that's just a hard budget. And that's totally cool. Like, yeah, we never, I don't know. We're not here to be like, oh, well, you should have budgeted smarter, Yeah. We get it. We get it because of our wedding budget. Like I said,
and we also did that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I just feel like for people,
we paid our photographer $600 off Craigslist. Or something, you know what I mean? Like,
us too. I think I paid her like $250 for the day, and then I just edited the photos afterwards.
And it's like, who am I to say like, oh well, you should have spent more money on your photography? Like, yeah, we did the same thing. It happens. A budget is a budget sometimes, and we get that. So
yeah, I just feel like to the listeners, the viewers who are starting out and are thinking, I'm going to charge low first so I can get my foot in the door. Just remember that you need to bring value in also. You need to have great customer service, because it's not something that customer service isn't something that you need to upgrade to have. It's just your personality, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like, it's just having a personal connection. And I mean, there's more to it than that, but it can be as simple as having a personal connection. And that, in itself can be the factor of somebody booking you or not. Yeah. But I think it's important too, is that I forgot what I was going to say.
Actually, because a lot of people want to charge low just to get their foot in the door, and they have no idea how to handle the whole wedding business, right? So I feel like I always tell people, don't forget that people are hiring you because you're solving a problem.
Yeah.
You're not there to be like, oh my gosh, you're trying to solve a problem.
And one of the big things I remember what I was going to say was that another thing, just you don't want to limit your couple's spending, you also don't want to be booked simply on price. We're a big believer of we want to connect with our couples. We want to be a right fit for them. We want to deliver exactly what they're after, and it goes in that direction. It's not like in the nicest way possible. We don't want them telling us what they want and then we're catering to that. We're obviously all ears, trying to make something as special and as perfect as they want, but it also has to fall within the realm of what we do and how we do it and our style. And if we're getting booked just on price, that's when it's just a door that's just going to open up a lot of problems usually.
Oh yeah. It's usually a red flag.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, the pricing discussion, we could talk on that on its own for hours. And
oh my gosh.
There's so much to it, but ultimately there's a lot of negatives that come along with underpricing yourself, especially if you're underpricing yourself and not if you run a cost of doing business calculator and how much you're going to have to pay in taxes and all this stuff, and you want to still undercharge and just make not very much money. I don't know many business people who succeed doing that, but like I said, you do you, that's your business, whatever. you probably won't be in business very long. But like, it's especially when you're, like I said, you're just drawing a number out of a hat. You're like, oh, my weddings will cost $1,100, you know, and it's not based in anything. And you're just it's a very quick and easy way to be not profitable, underwater, behind on work. That's when you hear of people just not delivering, going out of business, et cetera. And it's just a spiral downward.
Yeah. Oh, my wife joined us 3 years into the business.
Yeah.
And she did like a cost calculator, right? And she
Mhm.
showed me our third highest package, our most booked package, we're earning $98 from it.
Yeah. It's crazy when you look at like all the
It's
expenses that go into it, especially when you look at, like, you put in your hours and, you know, if you have a second shooter or if two of you are shooting and both your hours or whatever, right? And then you look at your hourly rate. And that's what like gets you where you're like, I could have way less stress in my life and work at, you know, Starbucks or whatever and make this close to the same amount
yeah,
and get
less
benefits.
stress.
So,
Oh yeah, less stress. You're right. Less stress with benefits. Yeah.
yeah.
So you just have to. And I just told her, I'm like, wow, I'm surprised we lasted 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Okay. So man, we got into pricing hard. So let's breeze through the other 5 mistakes.
Yeah.
I want to get into the website critique.
Mhm.
But so how do you talk about the gimbal, introducing the gimbal too early, and then let's transition into not bringing lights.
Yeah.
Also.
So one of the things that you'll, you know, like I said, if you see me around Facebook or you see me around, I don't know, Reddit or whatever, just different communities, like one of the big things that I really, really stand behind is that as a filmmaker, as a wedding filmmaker, when you are starting out, if you are investing in a gimbal, you are doing yourself a disservice. And I know people that will fight me on that because like, oh, it's so convenient and whatever. But I think that you should be able to tell a story with a tripod and a camera and like 2 lenses, right? And like, yes, you need more than that because you need audio and you need lights, like I'll get to in a minute. But for the most part, like your visuals should be movement and frame. It should be good composition, good lighting. Like that is going to be a more driving story than a gimbal. And the issue with a gimbal is that I do this too. Like we bring a gimbal now to every wedding and I find myself using it like during the wedding. I'm like, oh my gosh, so convenient. I'm going to get this shot. I'm going to get this shot and whatever. And then in the edit, I'm like, man, every wedding, I'm like, man, I use the gimbal more than I wish I would have. And I think I can notice that. And I have enough other good shots that I'll just not use a bunch of gimbal shots or not the ones that I don't want, whatever. But like, I think when you're starting out and your shot selection is lower and whatever, like you're just really stunting your growth of storytelling when you're bringing a gimbal early on.
That's amazing.
And it's so easy to do because it's so convenient, and I get that, but you just kind of focus on the wrong things then.
That's the thing. I was talking to my mentor last night about the guy who taught me how to shoot on a tripod and a monopod. And, you know, going back 8 years, there wasn't any gimbal. There was like a Steadicam, which was so hard to balance, right?
Cam HD 2000.
Oh my gosh. So I didn't use it because I didn't want my time to be consumed by trying to balance this thing while they're taking photos after the ceremony. So I practiced with a monopod. And, you know, like not having it is great because all I had was a monopod and I had to do something with it. And I feel like that's what the beginners need to know is they need to master the fundamentals first before getting into this crazy world of gimbaling.
I agree. And one of the things I told you, I don't think we were live yet, is that like I have this video of 5 mistakes that I think people are making. I keep a list on my phone of just like every video I want to make for my YouTube channel. And it's just like I'll never catch up. But one of the things I have below that video is more mistakes that I see. And so I eventually will have another one coming out. Right now I have 4 written out. I'm waiting till I at least have 5. But one of the things that I talk about or that I plan to talk about is overshooting. And I think that goes hand in hand with gimbals to some extent, where it's like, if you are on a monopod, you're going to be intentional about all of your shots. And if you're on a gimbal, you're just going to run around, hit record, grab a bunch of stuff, and you're not thinking about the edit, and you're not thinking about piecing it together. So like any of the shots that you see in our films, for the most part, on a gimbal, are very intentional. They're not set up in like the posed way, but they're like, I know this shot, I want to slowly push in on them because of this epic scenery. Or like I love, and I've had arguments with people about this, I love shots where you're pulling away. I think it really drives emotion. Yeah, slowly, like very subtle. But some people, I think more traditional editors are like, oh, it's a disconnect with the audience or whatever. So, but yeah, stuff like
that's right.
Whether or not you agree with it, it's like, it's an intentional move, and it's so easy to be unintentionally filming when you're on a gimbal.
So our method when it comes to shooting is all of our shooters need to learn how to edit first.
Oh yeah.
Because you when you bring them out in the field, they start to shoot for the edit instead of just overshooting and maybe they're gonna use this
and it's like, what do I have? Like, oh cool, I have 75 shots that are on a 35 millimeter and they're all like moving to the right. Like you can't piece it together.
Make sense. Yeah. Or 75 shots of the shoes.
Yeah. This is a shoe highlight film.
So. Oh my gosh, I wish. So and then so now that I just feel like gimbal has to. You should probably do a video about where to. I don't know if you have, but where to use the gimbal.
I have a video on gimbal, like my favorite gimbal moves that I use in a wedding.
Okay.
One point that I'm really, it's not exactly I think what you're saying, but yeah, I mean one point that I'm really driving home is intentionality and also like subtle movements. I think a lot of gimbal work is just too much movement.
Yes. Very unnatural movement.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with pushing in or pulling out or doing a little parallax movement or sliding to the right or whatever, but like it's so easy to cover a ton of ground while you do that you're just really like blowing that movement out of proportion. And I think it's no longer driving the story forward. It's just you saying like, look how smooth it was for 40 steps. And you're like, well, that was too much. Like, just take like one step. I don't know, Yeah. So
it's like you're trying to show them what a drone would look like if it's closer to people.
Well, I mean, ultimately what it is you're getting away from the story and you're focusing on like, well, look at this cool technical shot. And like that has its place in certain things, but wedding films often are not the place.
Yes, that's exactly right. There's going to be a disconnect and you're just going to lose your audience.
Yeah.
So, okay, now let's get into not bringing lights.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. That one's pretty straightforward. But I think one of the big things, like I think something that you don't think about early on is bringing lights. And you can look at our films from a few years ago without lights and our films now. And like, we're not using lights in prep usually. Maybe if it was a really rough venue or whatever.
Yeah.
The reception specifically, like dancing, toasts, the lights are just a huge improvement. And there's just you'll have people that are like, oh, I don't need lights. I have a Sony a7S II. And like, I get it. That's what we use. Can it shoot in really low light? Yeah. I mean, it can shoot in like crazy low light. But it's not simply like everything is exposed properly. Lights let you, paint with the light. You figure out where you want your highlights and your shadows, and you make your subject stand out from its background and stuff like that. And it's a really easy way, because there are so many people, especially starting out, that are like, I'm just going to buy this camera and nothing else. I think it's a really easy way, especially when you're starting out, to distinguish yourself, and it's not that much work and it's not that much money to invest to get a couple lights.
Yeah, it's a death wish, because I think our job as videographers or filmmakers or whatever you want to call us is we put the subtle details in. So when the client doesn't notice anything with the shot, that means we did a job right. But if they say, this shot is too dark, like I could barely see anything, then that's pretty much you just overcharge them, because you're supposed to make every single frame to be watchable and picturesque, right?
Yeah. And I look back at like some our weddings, like I said, a few years ago, even we weren't using lights, and like, or that's not entirely true. But I look back at weddings where we weren't using the right
The
lights
right lights, yeah.
the right way, I would say.
Yeah.
And like, I don't even know how I like shot them. You know what I mean? Like I look at them like, it's I mean, it's pretty decently exposed. It's maybe a tad dark, but it's nothing crazy. And I'm like, I feel like I shoot with like 2 or 3 lights now, and I'm like, how can I get more light on the dance floor? You know?
Yeah.
So I don't know how we did it back then.
We used to have these square 160 bulb LED lights that
Oh
we
yeah.
have, and then I noticed that you had your Comers. You use Comers, right? That
Uh,
Tacky helped you.
we're all over the place. So we have one Comer, like Comer 1800 or 1850 or
Oh
something.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's great. I love that light. We have a torch light, whatever, Boltzmann torch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Um,
remote with the remote.
yeah, I don't use the remote. I really should, but I don't. And that's great. I really like having both of those because the torch LED is like a really nice soft, like it feels softer to me. And I don't know.
That's right.
I like it. It's worked great for me. And the Comer can be like that too. It can just be another soft light, but a lot of times we'll use the like spotlight filter on it that flips down or flips up or whatever.
Yeah.
And that we like to use like certain scenarios. It's really beneficial to have that as like a rim light and really like spotlight them. Or like if we have to be a little further away, use that as the key and hit the spotlight just on the person giving a toast or whatever.
That's cool. I've never used the spotlight. It's always tungsten.
I like it. It just adds me like it adds a little bit. It basically just focuses. It kind of works like a Fresnel or whatever, where you can just focus it a little bit. Now, one of the things that we picked up a little while ago is the Godox SL60W. Which has like kind of exploded in popularity, and we bought it like a couple months before that, and I should have done a video on it, but oh well. And those are, I think they are similar to the like Practa or the Aperture lights. Aperture, like,
okay,
it's actually what I'm using right now. I have it with a nice big softbox over here, and I actually have one right here. I will pick up real quick.
I like your setup.
Oh, thanks. So this is what it looks like. So it's,
wow.
I mean, it's a decent, it's kind of a beast.
It's huge. Holy moly.
And that's the light. I mean, you can kind of see.
Oh, okay.
But this thing is crazy powerful.
How much are those?
I bought mine directly from China.
Okay.
Through eBay, I believe. And I bought a 2-pack of them for, I want to say it was like $260 or something.
Wow.
That's really the thing where it was just like not even, like I got 2 of them for less than I paid for my torch LED, and they're significantly brighter. Now, I also bought a Fresnel like cover to focus it a little bit better, because it is a pretty wide, like, whatever stream or whatnot. And that, was like $40 or whatever. So, you might have to spend a little bit more. And like, we only use them. We don't use them when we travel because they're harder to travel with. But for any weddings in Minneapolis or weddings that we drive to, we're starting to experiment using them more just because we can put them so much further away.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
I might come out with YouTube video about the lights that we use, but I'm kind of like, I don't want to give this away because it's like so cheap and it's we take it everywhere. But I'll think about it. But I'll show it to you later.
Yeah.
But sure. Okay, so it's really important to have lights because we're cinematographers and we need to make sure that everything's well lit, or at least to set the mood. And not having any lights is pretty much like giving your couple's amateur video.
Yeah.
So make sure
to some extent. Obviously, it's going to look better than an amateur video, hopefully.
Yeah.
But it's a good way to distinguish yourself and just kind of up. Like, it's one of those things if you're like, I don't know, how can I get any better? And if you're not using lights, boom, like instant upgrade to your work.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you could use lights and shoot with a T3i or something, and it's still gonna come out way better.
That's the thing. Like if yeah, the A7S2 is great, or the A7 III is great in low light. And like, that's true. And there are scenarios where it's helped us a ton. But like, if you're lighting stuff properly, you can shoot, I mean, you could shoot an amazing wedding film on like a 5D Mark II or a
Oh yeah,
T5 or whatever.
for
Like,
sure. Because it's
you know,
worked before,
yeah.
right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So what changed is just the age of the couples, but it's
Yeah.
still the same. So okay, now the last one before we get into the other one really quick
Yeah.
is not having a contract when you work.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess kind of expanding that is just like, seeing all these posts pop up on Facebook and whatnot, and you see people who are basically whenever there's a situation that's like, I don't know what to do, like this is stressful, and my client's doing this, and blah blah, blah, and it's like, oh, what does your contract say? Like so many times, they're like, oh, I didn't have a contract, it was for a friend, or it's my first one, or it's my first year, or whatever, and I'm just like, there is no excuse for not having a
There's no
contract.
excuse.
And like that's like that's kind of like a brutal way to put it, and I would I don't know, to change it to a phrase that's nicer if that's what you want to hear. But like, really, it's so important to a business to have a contract, and it is so important for both sides, both you and your client, to know what you're doing, what they're getting, and really, yeah, like what you are doing and what you're not doing. Like, I'm doing a 3-minute highlight. I'm not doing a 5-minute highlight. If you want a 5-minute highlight, here's my rate. And for them, knowing they're doing a 3-minute highlight and they're going to deliver it in 8 weeks or whatever, right? Like, it protects both sides. And so many times when you see kind of a scenario really blow up, at the very base of it, there's often not a contract. And
So heartbreaking.
it's just dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's people who, careers in this industry are basically cut short because they don't have a contract and a situation blows up, and they, you can't really point back to anything, and it's a he said, she said thing. And I'm sure it's massively draining, and you're just probably over it, at the end.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Like, I don't want to shoot another wedding.
Yeah. You're gonna get traumatized.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've gone through a similar thing. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, you just need to have a contract.
Yeah.
Because you would think that you wouldn't need it, but as soon as it hits you, you're like, oh, I wish we had a
Yeah,
contract.
that's the thing. Like, you could be doing this for 10 years and have no issues, but as soon as you have an issue, like, we've never had any big issues, but we have small stuff where we're like, hey, as outlined in the contract, XYZ. And we're people too, and we try to be understanding, but we're also business. And
yes,
like, I don't think any of our couples would ever say like, oh, they just treated me like a number, like I didn't even matter. But there are certain things where we will say like, hey, we'd love to do that. It's not included, or it's not what we typically do. Here's our rate, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's totally okay. And a big thing, I think, in like just the newer videographer thing, and it kind of goes in line with having a contract, is just a lot of people are so afraid to say no.
I was just gonna say, yep.
It's obviously a lot easier if you have a contract to be like, no, like this is what we agreed to. But even if that's not, like, you're the expert, they're hiring you for your work. And I think it's such a huge lesson to know when and to be able to say no. Not like that's my goal or anything. I'm not like trying to make clients mad, obviously. I want to give them an amazing experience and amazing product. But there are things that, oh, hey, I want this copyrighted song. Yeah. No, sorry.
It's just easier to say no.
Hey, I want a discount. Like, sorry, that we don't do discounts. It's unfair to our couples. Whatever. I don't know. Like, it's okay to say no in the right scenarios. And
we've also had ones where we want to watch the video on our anniversary. I'm like, that's a year from now.
Yeah.
You have to tell us if it's final or not. So
yeah.
It's easier for us to say no, and for us to be like, no, you need to look at the contract, because you're going to erase your footage.
A lot of,
for example,
clients kind of talking about our pricing thing. We're like, is there a standard? Like, a lot of clients haven't been through this, so they don't know what's normal. Yes. Like, you are the expert in that scenario. So if a lot of times a client might ask for something totally like innocently. They're not trying to be pushy or anything. And so it's your job as the expert to say like, no, I can't use music that I can't get a license to, or like, no, it's actually a lot more work to do a 12-minute edit than a 4-minute edit. You know what I mean? It's not like, it's not 6 more minutes of work. It's, or, you know, whatever, 8 more minutes of work. It's hours, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you don't need us for 10 minutes just because your ceremony is 10 minutes long.
Yeah, that exactly. Yeah, stuff like that. We're like, you know, some people, they just don't know. And so as the expert, I think no is not necessarily a negative thing. It's
It's an
a
empowerment,
thing. Yeah.
right? It's kind of like, yeah, people will respect you more, will
Yeah.
treat you more when you have a contract because you're going to look like a legitimate
Yeah.
business, you know?
We had a wedding. We had a wedding that turned out to be, we had a wedding that turned out awesome.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
and originally they were talking to us in one other place, and they were like, "Hey, this place charges this. We prefer your work." They also said they would give us a discount. Would you be able to discount at all, like down to their rate or down to their discounted rate or whatever? And I was just like, no, like we don't do that. It's not
Yep.
fair to our couples. We never have, and that's, you know, so it's easy for us because we've said no, and we don't mind being asked. Like, I get it. I would ask for a discount too, but the answer is no. And like, they booked on the spot. They're like, I really respect that you like take that seriously and that you stand behind what you do, and like it says something about your character. And I was like, cool, like I'm glad we agree. Like, obviously no harm asking for a discount,
Yeah, yeah. But we
but
just can't.
no. So
Yeah.
yeah.
See, it's easier
Yeah.
to say no, kids, whenever you have a
Yeah.
contract.
And a contract helps that. And there's more to, I mean, I think I probably expand a little bit in the video. You guys can check that out, but there's more to it than just a contract. I think that's the big one, but you know, business license, sales tax, stuff like that.
Yes.
There's a lot on the business side that like you just need to do, even though it sucks and you don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. If you're charging professional rates, you have to treat people professionally.
Yeah.
Just so they treat you professionally as
Yeah.
well, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, ultimately, again, what it comes down to is like, I love what I do. I love making wedding films. I love being an artist, a creative. My wife feels the same way, but we're a business.
We need to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
We need to make money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. This isn't a charity.
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks for that. Those mistakes were amazing because I'm pretty sure someone somewhere has learned from this. And now I wanted to get it, we could do it really quick, but
For sure.
I wanted to get into I've known you caught my attention when you offered online on Reddit to critique people's websites for free. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
this guy's amazing. He's doing it for free. And so that's when I started to appreciate what you have done. And I would love it if you told us about your experience when it comes to critiquing all of these it's just wedding videography websites, right?
Yeah, some have been a little more photo centric, I would say, and some are both. But yeah, I mean, the goal was to really shed light on, you know, on different people's websites. And I really believe that, I mean, I will learn stuff from critiquing websites, you know, and we've been doing this a long time. But so I believe that, like, one of the things I think I say in the start of each of those videos, which I think I've done 2 or 3 at this point, is like, I've done 2 or 3 videos that each have a number of critiques, is like, even if your website isn't critiqued in this video, like, you can still learn stuff. There's still, you know, there's a lot of universal, like, things that help a website or hurt a website, whatever. So yeah, it's been really awesome to do, you know, a handful of critiques per video on that, and just diving in to see what people are doing, how they're structuring stuff. And, you know, I've gotten to critique websites of people who are really just starting out, doing it on the side, and people who are doing it full time and have been in business for a while and, you know, doing awesome work. And I think everybody can learn, like I said, from those critiques. And, you know, we're always looking back at our website, and, you know, it's easy to let it take kind of a backseat to a lot of your other work. And we're definitely guilty of that as well. But it's oftentimes the first point of contact with your client, and it's incredibly important. So kind of optimizing that is huge.
Yeah. So since there's no business cards anymore, this is pretty much it. Like, first point of contact. So really quick, what were the common not really mistakes, but what were the most common things that you saw that you feel like people could just adjust and make their website better?
Yeah, it's like some really quick. So I think I have like three big things that I probably brought up a lot in throughout these critiques that are a little more general. The first thing that I saw a lot is there were a lot of places that I didn't know where they were based. Um, and I think like that's just such an easy fix. Not only will it help your client be like, oh, cool, like you assume they got to your website somehow and hopefully know where you are, but that's not always the case. And yeah, they might want to know. They probably do want to know, where are you?
Yeah, even I
And
feel like
whatnot.
even with destination weddings, I feel like
Yep,
they really want to know where you're from first before.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. And also just like it will help your SEO. Like there's just no reason
that's
not to
correct.
have it in there. Just saying like, hey, we like on ours, I think it says we primarily serve Minneapolis, Santa Barbara, and Destination Wedding Market or something like that. Like
Okay.
so easy to have a little bit of text somewhere, in the about you or something like that. So that's a quick fix that I think I recommended to a lot of people. Another one that I think is really important is having a video. Having a video, first of all, if you're a wedding videographer, having a video like just make it so easy and so quick for them to see your work. That is what will set you, like, you will not get anywhere if they don't see your work and don't like your work. Because you can't sell them on your customer service. You can't show them what an awesome personality you are. You can't make any of those connections unless they contact you. For the most part, you can kind of get some of that through on your website. But what's really going to draw them in, of course, is your work and what you want them to like about you and whatever is your work. So there were a lot of times where I was saying, hey, you should have a video on your front page. Like if you go to our website, there's a header image, and it's, I don't know, 12 rotating images or something. And then like the first thing that you go down is like welcome, and it's a video. We want our video, like we've always felt very strongly that like we do good work, people love our work, and we just need to get eyes on our work. And so, having a video that's, kind of front and center more or less, I think is big. And I think a lot of people, and we were guilty of this for a long time too, where we would have like more like text and stuff on our main page. And then like we'd have a video lower, or you'd have to click on like videos or, portfolio or whatever to really get into some videos. And so,
I was just gonna ask you about that. Like, how do you feel about having text on your website? Because we're
yeah,
video based, and people's attention span is like so
yeah,
short. How
I
much
think it's
text is too
important.
much?
Yeah, there's definitely a point. I don't think it's like a number of words or anything like that. I think it's something you just take case by case, and you need to look at it and visually. If I feel overwhelmed, like then that's over the line. But
If if if, if
it's
you
hard to
start to
say.
drift away when you're reading it, that's
Yeah,
probably too much
I
words.
mean, you're a visual storyteller. Your website should be visual,
Yeah,
you know, centered, visually pleasing, and there can absolutely be text. We want to tell our story a little bit about how we met. We want to talk about being a husband and wife team. It's important, um, but your videos should be, your images, your videos, whatever, should be like the primary thing that you build around, I guess is what I'd say.
okay.
And I think it's always good. Like I think have a portfolio page as well too. Like we want to have a couple videos on our main page because a lot of people are just going to maybe go through our main page and then contact us. But if people want to see more, yeah, you should absolutely have a portfolio that has, 40 videos or whatever you want. But put your best foot forward, your best weddings, even if they're not your most recent ones. Whatever you think kind of captures your style the best.
Yeah, and you have like just so you know, guys, you have, and statistically, you have just a few seconds
Yeah.
for couples to stay on your website. If it's not interesting or they can't relate to it,
Yeah.
um, you're gonna lose them.
Or they can't find what they're looking for. And
Yes,
that's like the third thing that I really drive home is it kind of what it is make it as easy as possible for a client to see your work and contact you. No matter where they are on the website, they should be able to click contact. Um,
that's smart.
And so, yeah, I think it kind of goes in line with that, where it's like you just want to make everything as easy as possible. So if they want to find pricing, we like having our base price on there. Some people don't, but for us at least, like we want it to be very clear. Where do you go to find pricing? Where do you go to see a video? Where do you go to find out about us? Like, just make it as simple, as few steps, as few clicks as possible. The more clicks between them landing on your website and either seeing your work, seeing if you're in their budget, or contacting you, the more clicks they have to do that, the less chance they will to do those things.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, bye, next.
Yeah.
Thanks.
This is confusing. I'm gonna just look at somebody else.
Yeah.
Happens
And it's
all the
gonna be
time.
a reflection on you too.
Yeah.
Like how easy it is to contact you, or how easy it is to talk to you.
Absolutely. Because think about like anything. Think about buying something on Amazon. If I can't find, like, if I'm curious, oh, well, this is cool. How much does it weigh? That's important to me for some reason. I don't know. Or how big is it? I want this desk. How big is it? Will it fit? If I can't find that easily, I'm just going to be like, whatever. I'm just going to look at a different one. And it's the same thing with anything.
Yeah, that's I just go back and then scroll down.
Just like, what's the next one?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's heartbreaking because, we're like small businesses, but
man, they're short. So
they're so short. I don't know what happened, but people now have really short attention span.
Yeah.
Well, that was great. I thank you so much for talking to me about the mistakes and what you've learned from website critiques. And so before we finish, do you have any last words, like any last advice for people who are starting out, or maybe who are already in the game for 5 years and
Yeah, I think, obviously just as content creators, we are and should be always pushing ourselves, pushing our content, pushing what we're making to the limit and trying to get better and better. But I think it's really important and it's overlooked a lot to also be succeeding on the business side. I think I said it earlier, like we know so many phenomenal artists, photographers, videographers, other types of art that are some of the best in the world. But if you can't run a business, then you can't be in business. And so I think it's something that's overlooked, and it's really important to give the appropriate, concern to that side as well, because it's a big part of it.
That's perfect. I hope the listeners, the viewers have learned something. I'm pretty sure they did, because that was one really good conversation. And I can't wait to do this again, because we talked about it earlier, but I want to do like an episode with you and Micah as like a husband and wife team.
Absolutely.
I've been starting to get
learn a lot.
I've been starting to get a lot of people who ask us about like, how does it feel to be husband and wife? And I'm like, okay, I'm bringing in people, so stay tuned.
And everybody's experience is going to be way different on that.
Yeah, way different. Just like every single wedding, it's never the same. So
for sure.
Yeah, so I really thank you. And tell the listeners and the viewers how they could get in contact with you if they have any questions, or if you have anything upcoming.
Absolutely. So like I said, I'm an open book. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can always hit me up on Facebook or whatever, Bobby Burns. You can also feel free to check out YouTube. I'm doing a bunch of tutorial work on there, really teaching the ins and outs of the wedding industry and what I've learned, as well as kind of just the general video and photo and content creator thing as well. You can check that out, youtube.com/Bobby Burns, BURNS. We're doing videos as frequently as we can. So, but wedding season always, takes a little hit there. So.
Oh yeah. So, okay. Thank you so much. I hope when we visit you, we could have lunch or something, because I really want to go there whenever we fly over. Whenever we fly over that area, it just looks so nice with all the lakes.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I'll let you know, and thank you so much.
Sweet. Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks.